Hello and welcome to the Satluj Podcast. An Indian academic specialising in economics hit the headlines recently when he claimed he believed India's true GDP, that's gross domestic product, is in reality less than half the size publicly declared by the Indian government. That India's supposed economic miracle is in fact a mirage, a politically orchestrated smoke and mirrors act designed to hide the unpalatable truth that India is instead an economic basket case, trailing far behind its main rival, that of course China. But it's not just a lack of GDP growth that may be the problem. It may be something more fundamental and indeed even more dangerous that's threatening the very existence of India as a single economic entity that could well lead to its fragmentation. Well, to talk about this, I'm joined today by our regular guest, Dr. Gurinder Singh Grewal, MD. Dr. Grewal, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us once again.
Good morning, Angus. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh. So, what we're talking the truth behind this 26th January celebration. So, Parthamata. So my theme is Parthamata in tears when economy unravels. So who is a Parthamata? Parthamata was first described in Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay's book called Anandamath, 1882. So here the mother is the land, not a deity, initially symbolic and poetic, not visual, a metaphor, not a necessarily a human goddess. It's a description of a land of India. So the land of India, the people are in tears when this government is celebrating. Why are we saying that? So let's look at this. This party came into power in 2014. So 2014, the value of Indian rupee against the dollars was $1 was equal to 61 rupees. But today, it's 92. So that's exactly 50% decline in the rupee. So let's give an example of a household. Somebody very astute is saving money, living in India. 10 years ago, he deposited 100 rupees in the bank and 7% interest rate, which is compounded yearly. So that's a pretty good return considered 7%. And at the end of 10 years, so he is entitled to get 196 rupees. Looks good, right? Nearly doubled. So $1, if you consider $100 at that time, now you should be having $3.21. But that's not true. Because of decline in the value of Indian rupee by 50%, he's actually getting only 98 rupees. So after 10 years, he's not even getting his principal back. So this is the truth being hidden from public, or sometimes the pomp and show does not reflect reality. So what is the message? The high interest rate do not protect savings when the currency collapses. Discipline and thrift are punished. People who are very disciplined and saving are not rewarded. Millions of Indians are being silently impoverished because they're losing the value of what they thought will be useful for them when they retire or have other projects. A nation can survive identity debates, but it cannot survive the direct destruction of household saving. That's why Parthamata is crying. You can see how economically India is being devalued because of this BJP policies. Let's look at another example, another very important financial subject. In 2010, 2011, India was paying 13 to 14% of its income. We're talking about the government, not the people. So Indian government in 2010 was paying 13 to 14% of its income as interest payment, which was manageable, so less than 15%. BJP comes in 2014, 2015, so that went up to 36 to 39%. The last numbers we have, it was close to 37%. So that burden, that crowded out the development and social spending. So 37% of the government's income in the last budget went to paying interest only. So how are they paying? Most of it is borrowed money. So they don't have money to pay interest. What to talk about principal? So this money is being borrowed. So next year it is going to be worse. When the government pays 37%, what the effect of it is? Less money for public service, investment in growth is squeezed, fiscal maneuvering space shrinks. Ordinary citizens will pay more taxes, inflation, and cuts to essential services. Within a decade, what this government and its policies, BJP, RS, Hindutva has done India to India, has shifted from manageable debt servicing to unbearable debt costs, mirroring this rupees fall and loss of ordinary people saving. This is direct result of government policy. Crisis is the outcome of deliberate choices. What happened? Weak revenue growth, despite high taxation rhetoric. You know that monetary policy of Modi, demonetization, had a lot to do with it. Corporate tax cuts without corresponding investment revival. So Ambani, Adani are given the benefits. Poor people are paying. Poor job creation, weak household demand, weak tax base. Heavy reliance on borrowing instead of structural reform. So what they borrowed last year to pay interest, they will have this year more to borrow to pay the interest only. So how long can this go on? Political prioritization of ideology and spectacles over economic fundamentals. What is their policy? They're politically showing what they don't have instead of discussing what the real economic situation. The result is collapsing of rupee, shrinking real saving, rising debt, service burden, vanishing filthy space. So human cost. What is the cost of all this to the people? Future taxpayers are trapped. Inflation becomes unavoidable. Savings are silently destroyed. Development spending is squeezed. Economic insecurity becomes permanent. Nations falter not in dramatic crashes, but as economic mismanagement suffocates growth and steadily destroys stability. So if we want to look at the example, what is happening in Iran, India is moving in that direction very fast. Every year it's going to get worse because they have more interest to pay. What happens when the government pays 40 to 45%? At 40% is called a fiscal danger zone. What will happen? One third to nearly half of income is pre-committed. Government loses policy flexibility. Development spending is squeezed. Now borrowing is used to pay interest. Roll over old debt. Currency weakens. Credit rating comes under pressure. Fiscal suffocation not yet collapse. So it's at 40%, they don't collapse, but they are suffocated. We're talking the government's ability to pay. At 40% is called a debt trap. Every second rupee goes to creditors. Borrowing becomes structural, not cyclic. Inflation or currency depreciation becomes inevitable. Social spending is cut or hollowed out. Political instability rises. Long-term growth collapses. This level represents a debt trap and has historically been linked to financial crisis across various regions. So this is a very bad situation. Let's see how India compares to other advanced economies. Let's compare with US and Japan. So India at current level paying 37 to 40%, which is peaked. Borrowing partially used to pay interest, weak revenue base, vulnerable currency. US is paying 15 to 20%. It's about 18%. It has a large debt, but strong tax base, revenue, reserve currency, and global demand of dollar. So US is managing it. Japan has a heavy debt, but that's only 8 to 10% of the government income. Very low interest rates, domestic financing. Most of the financing is within the country, and they have their own currency. Why India is far more vulnerable? Borrowing has a high interest rate, weak per capita income, narrow tax base, currency is not a global reserve, capital flight risk, interest increasing, funding by new borrowing. So bottom line is India is going down and Bharat Mata is weeping, not from lack of devotion, but from economic misrule. So what will what can we say? So anybody who is thinking of investing money in India and earning money on money need to see a psychiatrist because the facts are not supporting that. So new capital will be not going to India, it will be flying out. So the rupee is going down and the economic situation is going to worse. What are they going to do? Instead of focusing on economic revival, they are going to do the wrong thing. They are going to take attention away from economic crisis, use oppression of minorities more, and focus externally, blame Pakistan, blame Bangladesh, blame US, and blame everybody else, blame the Sikhs, blame Muslims, blame Christians for their problems, and not owning what they have created. So I think Bharat Mata understand. Bharat Mata means the land of India understand and is crying for help. But help is not on the way. I think the situation will get worse.
So, Dr. Groyle, thank you for that. I mean, if I can summarise, really, I think to help our audience understand the fundamental problem here with India, and we can scale it down almost. Let's take it as an example. It's like running a household, the finances of a household, using credit cards, and you have borrowed so much on your credit cards that you are so much in debt that you're now taking out other credit cards to pay the interest on the debt that you have accumulated. And in reality, all you're doing is you're entering what's called a doom loop, is that your debt is just compounding, getting greater and greater. And this essentially is what you're saying. India is fast approaching that point where it is basically borrowing money just to service its own debt.
Yeah, that's true. And how will that money keep coming? With the people who are lending their money, at some point they will say no. And then they will have to start selling their assets, like they were selling gold before Manmohan Singh came. And he was able to stabilize, improve things. But they hated him because he was a Sikh. They did not hate him because his policy. They hated him because he was Sikh. When he died, they didn't even wanted his funeral at the place where other leaders were treated. So this is how much hatred they have for other minorities.
And also, Dr. Groyle, if we can look at some of these economic fundamentals that you've touched upon there, the failing rupee, the falling value of the rupee, in normal circumstances, this actually, in many ways, would be a useful balancing tool economically, because what it does mean, it means India is cheap. It means that the West, for example, if they want to use Indian services, if they want to buy Indian goods, they are cheap because the rupee is so weak. Now, that would normally be the case. But unfortunately, we seem to have that always assumes that the economic fundamentals of that nation are sound, that it can then grow. It can use that money that pours into India to rebuild and grow and develop its economy, build its manufacturing base, for example, or its service base. But in reality, it's Narendra Modi's government, the BJP government, their economic policy has followed one of isolationism. It has turned away foreign investment, foreign direct investment, FDI as it's called. It's all about India. We will grow India for India. And it has deliberately turned away and rejected foreign investment that is crucial in any other situation to help grow and develop, to meet demand, which would then naturally grow that nation's economy. So it appears that it is actually the failure of BJP economic policy that is contributing ultimately to the demise of India.
Yeah, you're right. How would foreign nations look at where they invest? They want to look at political stability. That is why most of the world want to bring their savings to US, because the system is 250 years old, has a political stability. Okay. In India, there is no political stability. Human rights, how are they treating their own people? That is worse. What the right to free speech, that's being choked. Okay. All the indices, the world monitors are getting worse. Right to religion. Okay. They are self-persecuting Christians, Muslims, Sikhs, destroying their places of worship. Let's look at another example. Okay. Yesterday's the big parade, there was a lot of pomp and show. They had invited some European leaders, and one of the big part of the parade was song Unity in Diversity. Okay, let's see how unity and diversity is working. On January 4th, a Catholic priest goes to a family's house to pray for them. That's in Odisha. We used to call Odisha, now they call it Odisha. Can't keep up with this. So a mob of about 40 people went. They disturbed the prayer meeting. They beat up and humiliated the priest, and they put cow dung mixed with water in his mouth and chanted Hindu slogans. He was paraded through the village and assaulted near a temple. Police intervention was delayed. And not only that, a case is registered against him for forcing conversion of their family. Incident occurred just a few weeks before Republic Day. On January 26th, India officially celebrated the Constitution. That's the Republic Day, right? They adopted the Constitution. How they celebrated with speeches invoking unity and diversity, secularism and equality before law. The complete nonsense. Republic Day commemoration of Constitution should guarantee freedom of religion, dignity, and equal citizenship. But this example of Odisha, which is one example, but there are hundreds and thousands every day this is happening. Incident shows the constitutional contradiction. Minorities are humiliated and coerced in daily life, while the state projects pluralism or ceremony. Unity and diversity cannot be performative, not only theatrics. It must exist beyond prayer routes and televised speeches. So religious violence goes unpunished or counter-criminalized. Constitutional promises risk becoming symbolic rather than substantive. In short, Republic Day speeches spoke of unity, ground reality in Odisha, exposed fear, coercion, coercion, and inequality. That's why Bharat Mata is in tears. Bharat Mata is in tears because her minorities are persecuted and tortured by those who act with confidence and offer protection. So the people who torture, they have protection of the state, of the ruling establishment. They are Bajrang Dal, a part of RSS, BJP, sister organization. Bharat Mata is in tears because while the ruling class celebrate Republic Day and with borrowed money, the poor struggle to survive under rising prices, shrinking savings, vanishing opportunities. Parade speaks of pride. Speeches invoke unity. But a nation cannot claim moral greatness when constitutional values are at home. And economic pain is marked by spectacles. A mother does not weep because of criticism. She weeps because her children are hurt, hungry, and unheard. Another
sorry, go on.
Example of economics there, one of the YouTube channel was talking about, I don't want to mention their name because they may be harassed. The states which are doing very good economically, like southern states, are being punished. For example, Tamil Nadu, everybody gives money to the center as a part of the taxation, then they get some back. So Tamil Nadu gives 1 rupee to central government, get 28 cents back. UP, Uttar Pradesh, the Chief Minister Yogi Aditya, he looks like a sadhu, the chief Kuruk. He gets 2.5 rupees back. Look at the disparity. What is the state is doing? They have put this like a Mahatma, like a Yogi. Yogi in the true word, when I grew up there, Yogi was like one who renounced worldly things and he was meditating, praying. Now the Yogi has become chief minister of a state which is extracting money of other states instead of doing things for their own state. This is, I think he learned from Gandhi. Gandhi, keeps coming up again. The best crook they have, he put a chadar, the sheet, that he was a poor man, good soul, but the facts were not true. One of the senior leaders of Congress, one time Sarojini Naidu, she said this Mahatma doesn't know how much money he's costing us so he can live poorly. What was shown to public was not true. He was not living poor, but he showed like a saint, like a sadhu, put a sheet around him. So this is what this BJP people, like the UP, this guy is doing, Yogi. Yogi was supposed to renounce everything. Now he's the chief minister. It's quite possible that crazy man can replace another crazy man. So this is the situation. There's no true freedom, no freedom to pray, no freedom for speech, no economic freedom. There's a dying economy. I think this India is doomed. I'm going towards what's happening in Iran. I think people should be very careful when they invest money in India because what they get back after 10 years, maybe not even half, maybe nothing left. So investing money in India for anybody who thinking about is a poor choice. Even the people who are trying to save there are becoming poor. So the country is, I think, moving toward collapse, economic collapse, which will then follow with the political collapse of the government.
That's very interesting, Dr. Grail, and that phrase "unity through diversity" is a wonderfully idealistic idea. I mean, it sounds great in theory, but it only works if it's governed by a benign government that treats that diversity equally. And it is very clear, as per so many of your examples, that they don't treat the minorities as equals. It is the Hindu population that are always favoured, and of course the central belt that is favoured by the Delhi government. So it's an interesting evolution then from this idea of unity through diversity. And again, this unity is actually artificial. It was created by the British Empire originally through force, and then maintained by the Brahmanical elite post-1947. And it will only take something, some catalytic event, some factor that can break apart those bonds, because it is clear to me, Dr. Grewal, that there are fractures, there are breaks, there are chasms opening up, as you say, between these various regions, which are now asking these uncomfortable questions of Delhi. As you say, Tamil Nadu, for every rupee that we give, we receive only 28% of that back. In other words, they're losing. And there are obviously other states that are benefiting from this. So there is this inequality, economic inequality. Do you think, therefore, that economics could be this catalytic event that could actually break up India in the foreseeable future?
No, right now, the most prosperous states are, relatively speaking, southern states. And I think every day they are defying central policies, and they are central government trying to control more by increasing the number of parliament members, which I don't think the South will let them happen, because the population growth is in the North, so they will have more parliament members to weaken the southern states. I think these disparities are every day. People are realizing southern states are, relatively speaking, more educated. I think they are learning, and they have to finally see what is in there for them. They don't even like the language Hindi. They don't want to read Hindi. So I think the writing is on the wall. I think it's moving in the wrong direction for this unity thing, but probably good direction for minorities, because this should end. Continuing this for longer is bad for all of us, especially for the Sikhs. I think the breakup is better. We everybody in charge of their own future, not relying on RSS and BJP. I think we have discussed before, Punjab, especially the Sikhs, we will be a lot more prosperous. And if Punjab was free, it will look like Switzerland. I think people are so hardworking, economy will be good, Tamil Nadu will be better. So I think it's moving in that direction. It will be, hopefully it happens without the bloodshed, like Soviet Union or something. So that's what the hope is.
Indeed, as you rightly say, of course, there are states like Punjab that have been deliberately wound down economically, that have said, look, we can do better if we govern our own, if we take control of our own state, and we can govern ourselves, because our future is being frustrated, our economic growth is being frustrated. So absolutely. Now, as a final section of the podcast, Dr. Grewal, I'd just like, if I may, just to talk about Mark Tully. Now, it was reported yesterday, Mark Tully, a former BBC correspondent for India, who's a very, very well-known figure, both in India and, of course, over here in the United Kingdom. He was a very well-known correspondent who reported regularly from India, not least during the events of Operation Blue Star in June 1984. He became very well known, of course, for his reports post that, and, of course, during the genocide that followed a few months later. He did, in fact, write a book about it, about the events surrounding that. But I understand, and I have to say, I wasn't aware of this actually up until very recently. We always thought Mark Tully was a very impartial BBC reporter whose integrity was unquestioned. But it turns out, actually, this may well not have been the case. I understand that you might have a few opinions on Mark Tully.
That is true. In India, government has been trying for a long time to by the press. So before we go to Mark Tully, I'm going to give you one example. When I was a college student, there was a weekly newspaper, very popular, called Blitz, published from Bombay area, and very high circulation. He always admired government, Indira Gandhi, and always blamed Desai, his son, for corruption and all that. And later on, reading some history which we were not aware of, the Soviets were spending a lot of money in India to promote Gandhi, communism, and all that. So there were a lot of newspapers they were supporting, and he probably, I don't have actual figures, but my assessment is he was probably one of those benefited from that because he always promoted Indira Gandhi regardless of what she did. So Mark Tully was a BBC reporter. Because he was a BBC reporter, the people think he must be high caliber and very honest and good reporter. So around 89, I think I sent you the piece of paper, the date on that, I don't remember. So we got a one sheet of paper with a little note. It is a copy of what a raw officer in Indian embassy in Washington was reporting back to his superiors what they were doing. So interestingly, it all the people they were supporting with the money, they have given so much money to this and all. They were all a newspaper or some kind of a media paper people they were supporting. And Mark Tully, that year, Mark Tully was given 48,000 pounds. That's a big, huge amount. Okay, so we had to think about should we print it in World Sikh News or not. So it came to World Sikh News office. So with the internal debate and all that, we did not know who sent us. Probably some sympathetic person in the embassy felt that we should know it because it was all media people, because they were all attacking us. So we decided to publish it and take a risk. So one or two person wrote threatening letters, and I told them, look, this is our information. If you think we are wrong, you can write, we will publish your version. And we did for one or two people. And there were Sikh names in that too. Okay. The Mark Tully wrote us a big heavy letter, a big package, sent us a registered mail. And his lawyer said he was going to file a lawsuit because we printed this, we are insulting him. So I was sitting there and writing a response. And my friend, Aninder Singh Somal, who was the secretary of World Sikh News, I like to thank him. World Sikh News started in his small office, which he gave us free and gave a lot of help. Poor soul, he is gone now, but we are very grateful to people like that. He had a lot more experience. He used to work in the army office, and he told me, give me this, what are you writing? So I gave it to him, and he said, okay, you go ahead, go to the hospital, I'll take care of it. I said, how would you take care of it? He said, I'm going to do nothing. Let's just put it in the folder. Nothing is going to happen. He's just barking down, dogs don't bite. You know what? He was right. Nothing happened. We never heard from him again. And if my information is correct, which I think is correct, I don't know the date and what was publicly said. Mark Tully was let go from BBC. I can't say it was our reporting, but they must have done their own investigation, and Mark Tully will let go. Now, for last couple of days, Indian journalists who are even not necessarily pro-government, because he worked for BBC, oh, he was the greatest journalist, we should follow him and all that. Look at the celebration of corruption.
Oh, can you still hear me, Dr. Grewal?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sorry, I thought I'd lost you there, Dr. Grewal. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the story I have. I remember, and I think I sent you that one piece of paper. It does show 48,000 pounds. That's a lot of money then.
A huge amount. It's, I mean, if we think about the facts that we know about India, and even back in those days when Tully was reporting on the ground, and it's reflected in today's environment, that if you report in India, if you report against the Indian government, you won't last long in India. You'll basically get kicked out. So it is very likely, even if we don't have any actual substantial evidence, but even just the implications that if Mark Tully and, of course, the BBC as a whole, if they held the Indian government to account, if they criticised the Indian government, it is very likely that they would not have been allowed to operate in India. And so Mark Tully was more than likely aware of this. So, of course, he had to be an apologist for the Indian government. He had to toe the line. He had to toe the party line of whether it was Congress or subsequently the BJP. And, of course, that is still the case today with the BJP in India. Essentially, this is why there is no free press in India, is because journalists like Mark Tully are both offered the carrot and stick. They are offered incentives, potentially, allegedly, like Mark Tully, this huge amount of money, report for us rather than against us, and we will reward you. And of course, there is the stick approach where if you don't report alongside us, if you don't align with us, we will shut you down or kick you out. That does seem even to be the case today.
So let me tell a story I read a long time ago. You know, when we used to run newspaper, I would read a lot about newspapers, what they used to be, what the standard should be, and how we function and all that, because journalism was not my area of study, but I used to read a lot so we can learn something because we were doing it out of necessity. So there was some big heavy newspaper, let's not say name because we don't know this. So this newspaper editor was hiring a journalist, and the lady came for an interview. He's trying to emphasize, he said truth or accuracy to journalism is as a virtue is to the lady. He's trying to emphasize his viewpoint, what he expects. And lady is much smarter. Lady say, yeah, newspaper can always retract, but the lady cannot.
Yes, I think that's...
So I think that is my story for Mark Tully, you know.
Yeah, indeed. Well, interesting and fascinating. And of course, rested in peace, Mark Tully, but certainly questions raised about his own impartiality. But there, we must leave it as always. But we will be talking again with Dr. Grohl soon to continue our discussion. And Dr. Grohl, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us once again.
Thank you, Angus. And
And thank you for watching the Satluj TV podcast. We will see you next time.